Been off on holiday, it feels like ages since I've been here. So our reading this morning is taken from Romans 12, verses 14 to 18. Ask God to bless everyone who mistreats you. Ask him to bless them and not to curse them. When others are happy, be happy with them. And when they are sad, be sad. Be friendly with everyone. Don't be proud and feel that you know more than others. Make friends with ordinary people. Don't mistreat someone who has mistreated you, but try to earn the respect of others. And do your best to live at peace with everyone. So for some of you, this might be a long way away, but for others it mightn't be so long. But can you remember when you first became a Christian, how confusing it was? You've just taken the most important decision in your life. Somebody's maybe led you in a prayer, you've been to a big event, and you've taken the decision to follow Christ. And now you suddenly begin to realize that you don't know what you're supposed to do next. I remember a lady getting saved one night at Alpha, and she left here, she was absolutely buzzing. And the next week when she came back, I couldn't really ask her how her week had went. And when I did ask her, she told me it was absolutely terrible. She says it was Halloween that week, and she normally had a party for her daughter and her friends, and she didn't know why she was allowed to do that anymore. She says in work, she didn't know whether she should still be mixing with the same workmates because none of them were Christians and their language was a bit rough, just as hers probably was a week before. And then when it came to the weekend, her and her husband usually had a wee drink on a Saturday night to watch a film, and she didn't know why she was allowed to do this as well. So him and her ended up having a row. And it's not unusual for many people when they first give their lives to Christ. Suddenly they think it becomes all about following rules and trying to please God. And if they don't get it right, then God's going to be angry with them, which couldn't be further from the truth. Another very common thing which confuses many believers, and some who are also a wee bit further down the road, is how is a believer supposed to relate to an unbeliever? Should I pull away completely, join a monastery, move to a compound in the mountains, maybe just surround myself with Christians, Christian co-workers, Christian friends, Christian neighbours? This position argues that we have very little in common any longer. Unbelievers will only to some degree pull us away from Christ, and since this world is not our home anymore, we should start spending time with the people who we will be spending eternity with. Now, as I mentioned a few weeks back, if you're someone who is struggling with an addiction or other problems, breaking away from your current circle of friends is exactly what you need to do until you manage to break free from your addiction and get stronger in your faith. But for most of us, entering into a religious bubble is the exact opposite to what God has called us to do. The one purpose God has for each and every one of our lives is to reach the lost. He wants us to share the gospel with those around us. How can our family, friends, work colleagues and neighbours see the change God has made in our lives if we become religious weirdos and hide away? He doesn't want us to withdraw from the world. He wants us to be bang in the centre of all that's going on. And He's called us to be salt and light. He wants us to be the salt that stops the things around us from going bad. And He wants us to be the light that shines into the darkness of this world. He wants us to penetrate the world with His goodness. Instead of stepping away from our non-Christian friends, He wants us to be one of the best friends that they have. Paul writes, be friendly with everyone, make friends with ordinary people. Even when someone does you wrong, he tells us that we are to pray a blessing on them. When they are happy, sharing their happiness, and when they are sad, sharing their tears. See, the truth is, everyone is looking for a true friend. Not just acquaintances, but people who are there with you when you need them most. As a close friend to a non-Christian, you might not be the first person they call when they're heading out on a Saturday night out into the town for a drinking session or whatever else they're getting up to. Well, at least I hope not. But you should be the first person they call when they need someone to speak to, who they can trust, or when they want someone to speak to when things are going bad and they need advice or some prayer. When I go into the local pubs on a Saturday, I'm probably not the first person people want sitting in their company. And I can say yes because I know before I was a Christian, the last person I would have wanted sitting at my table with my mates was the local pastor. And it always makes me smile when I'm sitting in the pub and company and they start apologising for using bad language in the pub. And then if they're telling a joke or something, they'll say to me, you want to maybe close your ears to this one. But here's the thing. On many occasions, people who have afforded me in the pub have come to me in private when they have been struggling with things in their lives and they need someone to talk to. When a family member or someone close to them is ill in hospital or whatever, they come and they'll ask me to visit. I'm usually the person they come to when a family member has died and they need support, guidance, and someone to take a funeral service. And I've lost count of the number of people in the pubs who have asked me to pray for them or someone close to them. Over the years in the pubs, I've seen people get saved. Our team have had countless conversations about Jesus, planted many seeds in people's hearts and made many friends, none of which would have happened if we had hidden ourselves away in a whole huddle in the church. And this didn't all happen overnight. It took a while to build those relationships with people and gain trust. I'm a big believer in the saying, people need to know you care before they care about what you know. And I'm only using pubs as an example because not everyone's going to be going into the pubs. But in your own everyday lives, God wants you to build true friendships with people that are already in your life so that you can share the gospel with them. God has put these people, your co-workers, your classmates, your neighbours, your teammates, in your life, especially so that you can share with them about the most important decision they could ever make. If you don't tell them about what Christ has done for them, then who will? After all, you wouldn't be here today if someone hadn't taken the time to share the good news of the gospel with you. As a follower of Christ going out into the world, we need also to be aware that for many of us, we might actually be the only Christian that many of our friends have in their lives, or we might be the only Christian in the workplace. And this morning I want you to ask yourself this question. If you're the only representation of Jesus Christ that someone has in his or her life, how would they perceive Christianity? Unfortunately, many people's experiences of Christians that they have met is not good. A word often used to describe Christians as hypocrites. And before I became a Christian, I met Christians who were the biggest gossips in the workplace. I met Christians who drank more than many unbelievers. I met Christians who were judgmental and looked down on other people. And for years, a lot of these people put me off coming to church. I've heard this saying before, and it says, the reason most people are a Christian is because they met a Christian. And the reason most people are not a Christian is because they met a Christian. Always remember that you might be the only Bible that people read. As a follower of Christ, God wants us to be holy and secure in our faith. He wants us to live lives which are a living demonstration of his kingdom to those around us. He also wants us to walk out our doors into the world and get to know the people he's placed in our lives. And as we build relationships with people around us and share the truth with them, just remember, we are to be in the world, but not of the world. And how you share your faith with others is very important, and if done wrongly, can ruin your friendship and put many people off. I want you just to watch a wee short video here. Yeah, I know it's funny to watch, but a lot of Christians do not know how to reach their non-Christian friends. So this morning, I'm going to give a few practical ways that will maybe help you. The first is I've already touched on, and it's how you live your lives as a witness. Many here will know Charlotte, our children's worker, and if you've heard Charlene share her story, you will know that she was an atheist who came to faith not through any deep theological discussions, but simply by watching how her two Christian housemates lived their lives. She's seen something different in them, which she found attractive. What she didn't realize at the time was that she was witnessing the fruit of the Spirit working in their lives. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. And it was through the witness of living with these two Christian friends that she eventually came to Christ herself. As I already said, sometimes you are the only Bible that people read. And it was through our way that we can witness to friends is by sharing our own story of what Christ has done in our lives. Everyone has a story. It doesn't matter whether you came to faith as a young child or later in life. You can still share what the difference of having Christ in your life meant to you. People can argue all they want about the Bible, but they can't argue your own personal story. Another way that we can help lead friends to Jesus is always to be ready to give an answer to their questions about faith. I know when I was on my journey, I used to torture two Christian men that I worked alongside with questions, and they didn't always know the answers, but when they didn't, they would be honest, and they would say, I'll come back to you with that, and they always did. 1 Peter 3:15 says, always be prepared to give an answer to everyone who asks you to give the reason. I hope that you have, but do this with gentleness and respect. In one of the obvious ways to point friends to Jesus is to invite them along to church or events. In Willowfield, there are many opportunities to invite friends to events which are run throughout the year. Men's and women's nights and days away, community events, curry nights, carol services, etc. And this allows your friends to come along, meet other Christians, have fun, experience church, and hear the gospel message in a non-threatening way. Before I came to faith or had any interest in coming to church, Chris Matchett, who many of you will know, invited me on a number of occasions the men's Keep Fit in the church halls. And after a couple of years, I eventually gave in and actually enjoyed it. And I ended up really looking forward every week to coming to the Keep Fit. And the men's Keep Fit actually played a big part in me coming to faith. And it's the reason why I first decided to come to the Willowfield Church. Now, women are great at inviting people, but men are rubbish. When we run men's events like a curry nights or the full events like the walk next week from Ballintoy Harbour to Port Ballantrae, guys, you are missing opportunities by not inviting friends along. Our men's youth club starts back again the 8th of September in the halls. There's a free gym, pool, table tennis, darts, indoor archery, tea and coffee. Why would you not want to bring friends along to something like this? But the guys in the church never buy into it. We're doing an hour curry night on the 6th of October of a guy called Willie G, who's coming along. Apparently, I haven't heard most of his story myself. He's a world famous tattoo artist. I think he lives in Whitehead, but he was on, and he runs into tattoos. He won Miami Inc. He tattooed with drug cartels. He's one of the main tattoo artists for the Premiership football players bring over. And he's a guy who ended up with a big cocaine addiction, drug addiction and other things, and came to faith a couple of years ago. So that's a date for your diary. And guys, please bring friends along to this. One of the best opportunities we have here in Willowfield to point our friends to Jesus is by inviting them along to an Alpha course. You know, it's hard to bring people or invite people to church if they're not in that place, but it's easy to bring or invite people to an Alpha course because everyone's got questions. In the past 8 years, we have seen close to 100 people come to faith here, and many more in the years previous. Our next course starts on Tuesday the 20th and will be held in the Craigie Sports Club, which is up beside Iceland on the Craigie Road in Gibson Park Gardens, or if anyone as local will know it better as Daddy Winker's Lane. Invite your friends along. Come along with them. If you have to give up 10 weeks, or even if you just bring them along to the introduction night. And what's the worst can happen? They'll say no. And the last and most important thing we need to do for our friends and family members who don't know Jesus is to pray, and keep praying for them. And on that note, I'm going to do something a bit different. And I'm going to ask our worship band to come forward. And as the guys lead us in their last worship song, I'm going to place this cross here. And right along the front of the church, there's post-it notes. And while the band's playing, if there's anyone that you would like to pray for, or you would like to come to faith, or someone that you would like to invite to Alpha, come along, write their name on a post-it note. You can write as many names on a post-it note as you want and stick it on the cross. And that's be intentional about starting to invite people along. Because the truth is that every time someone dies who doesn't know Jesus, they're going to hell. So, guys, over to you.